For those who hear, let them hear. For those who see, let them see. May the Christ within illumine the world, and know that God is one with thee. Melchizedek, Truth Principle. Touching the hem of the garment. We bring to you the blessings of the Masters. May you enjoy every full measure of the infinite abundance of the eternal heart of love. Peace be unto each one of you, now and throughout the ages, as it has been from the beginning. Peace is man's infinite inheritance. Long since should man have known this and enjoyed its every full measure, had it not been for the confusion of the mundane sphere. But you are coming to a place along life's path where you can say, as a humble Galilean has said, "Though I am in the world, I am not of it." We are not going to speak about women. We shall refer to one woman who called forth from the Galilean a virtue. All mankind is possessed with the same virtue, love. The story I am going to relate, each one of you undoubtedly is familiar with, for at some time or other you have read of it in what you have learned to call the Holy Writ. You will remember that the Galilean was traveling along the road, and as was customary, as soon as he was heard of, the people left their homes, their workbenches, and followed him. And they gather about him to listen that they may hear of the power of God. Immediately about the Galilean stood his 12 disciples, and about the 12 disciples gathered the throng of people to listen. It is not always truly narrated in your Holy Writ as to why the 12 disciples stood immediately about the Galilean. For one to learn, they must listen. And in order to listen, or be able to listen, there must be order. Therefore, the 12 disciples kept order. For where there is confusion, there is little understanding. And that you have found to be true. In reading of the story, you will remember that a certain woman whose physical body had been smitten over a period of 12 years with what the narrative referred to as an issue of blood, this woman beheld the throng, and so great the throng that she was unable to see the Galilean, let alone touch him. And as she stood at the edge of the throng, with the desire to behold his countenance, to come in closer contact with him, to receive a healing to her body, the desire so well within her that at last she bent to her knees. That symbolizes humility in thinking. And as she bent to the ground, or knelt to the ground, she crawled on her hands and knees between the feet and legs of the throng and touched the hem of his garment. What is man to understand from the press of the throng? When man has the spiritual significance of the narrative and he understands contact with God, the press of the throng is but symbolic of confusion in man's thinking. As her desire became great, that she might receive a blessing to the healing of her body, she elevated her thinking and in consciousness humbled herself to touch the hem of the garment. What is man to understand by the garment of the Galilean? The garment means but one thing. The Galilean was clothed with the virtue of the Father, and thus it was not necessary for the woman to touch his hand, nor to look into his face. Merely through humility, desire, earnestness, but to touch the hem of the garment. As she touched the hem of the garment, the Galilean spoke forth in these words. He said, "Who hath touched me? For this very moment a virtue did leave me." The disciples, wholly unmindful of what was taking place, said, "Master, no man hath touched thee, for the press of the crowd is too great." The Galilean said, "Verily so, this moment one hath touched me." Then the woman spoke and said, "'Tis I who have touched thee, and behold, my body is healed. For 12 years I had an issue of blood, and I have spent all my worldly goods, and no man gave unto me comfort. But this very moment the flow of blood has stopped, and my body is whole." And the Galilean answered and said, "Go thy way, good woman, for in this hour thy faith hath made thee whole." Listen to the statement. Go thy way, for in this very hour thy faith hath made thee whole. The Galilean took no credit for what took place. The woman had heard of the myriad healings throughout the length and breadth of the land. Desire for the wholeness of her body became preeminent in consciousness, and undoubtedly she said, "I shall find this man." Desire took her to the man. Faith, dear hearts, hath made her whole. Let your faith be so quickened. Let your 12 disciples keep order for you, and the press of the throng shall not interfere with those who desire to touch the hem of your garment. Remember, you are Christ incarnate. You have that virtue which the sick of the body, the trouble of the mind, the broken of heart seek. Keep yourself in readiness as you travel the highways and byways of life, and you are encountered by those whose hearts are heavy, whose paths are darkened with despair, those who have known of God but lost God in the confusion of mortal thinking, and perchance those who never knew God. For remember, dear hearts, many are the so-called teachers who teach of God. May I repeat a few familiar lines? Part of the sun in the apple, part of the moon in the rose, part of the flaming Pleiades in everything that grows. Out of the vast come nearness, for the God of love of which man sings has put a little bit of his heaven into every living thing. Dear hearts, a part of his heaven. It is spelled in these letters, L-O-V-E, love. That is the part of heaven in every living thing. Man may deny, man may blaspheme, man may vilify, condemn, and persecute, but with all, dear hearts, remember there is something which man loves. Every man loves something, and regardless of that which man loves, be not concerned. Ever be mindful that man loves, and where love is, nothing can be lost. Where love is, there can be no hellfire and brimstone. Where love is, redemption is in evidence. Where love is, restitution can always be made. Do not be too concerned over what a man has been, over what a woman has been. Let not a reputation, even as a man or woman of earth creates of their own undoing, interfere with your recognition of the Christ of God. Keep your light burning. Keep your bowl well filled with the oil of love, the wick well trimmed with kindness, and that which protects the flame from the wind, well cleaned and polished with the ointment of understanding. Let your light shine. As the Galilean of old, though you stand in the press of the throng, there shall be those who shall find you, and in the humble desire, in heart's consciousness, there shall be that genuflection, and they shall reach through the press of the crowd to touch the hem of your garment. You shall know it, for you shall feel the release of the virtue. How shall you feel it? Well, let me put it in very crude language. It will make you feel so good inside. You will feel free. You will feel big. You will feel great inside. Whatever you turn your hand to do shall no longer be an effort. There will be no difficult task. For a life surrendered unto the innate Father, the inner dwelling Father, is that which keeps your temple clean, keeps your garment magnetized with the Christ virtue. There shall be those who cross your path, and a casual handshake may perchance cause them to shudder, as it were, and to themselves they may say, "My, what a feeling came from that handshake." The more of love you use, the more you shall have to use. Remember, the Galilean would never ran dry, dear heart. Never ran dry. We are told that in his very last breath, he said, "Father, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Was the Galilean referring to what they were doing to his body? Had our theologians but told the truth? No, indeed. That was of lesser importance to the Galilean, for that he could endure. What did the Galilean mean when he said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do"? He was thinking of those who persecuted him. He was thinking of those who handed him vinegar and gall to quench his thirst. He was thinking of those who drove nails in the hands and feet. He was thinking of the one who pierced his side. He was thinking of what they were doing to themselves. And he was asking the Father's forgiving love to them and for them, that even they will walk free. Yes, dear hearts, you have had vinegar and gall offered to you to quench your thirst. You have had nails of persecution driven in your hands and your feet. You have had your side riven, and you have had placed upon your brow time without number, no doubt, the crown of thorns. Learn to say, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And I promise you, you shall be found in the press of the crowd, and the hem of your garment shall be touched. They are being touched now, dear hearts. They are being touched now. Many have benefited by the virtue you have sent forth, even unto those who have been unable to touch the hem of your garment. How has this been brought about? Well, it is quite simple. You have prayed, and your prayer have been one of faith. Faith, understanding. A prayer of knowing that as you utter your prayer, it was answered. Now, your prayer did not go forth in an agonized manner, and you did not send them to the far-off blazing Arcadia. You ascended in consciousness, and you stood before the table upon which rests the golden salver, wherein is placed the shewbread of life. There you laid your loving, humble petition, and it became illumined with the lightened tapers and the golden candlesticks, placed upon the table aplenty at either end of the golden platter. That is fervent, effectual prayer. Good night. Bless you, bless you, bless you.